Okay, now let's move on the next element, the global resources of stakeholders. Why are resources so important in a social conflict? It's simple, because they can be used properly to promote development or improperly and wasted during a conflict. So it is crucial to recognize many resources are used in the conflict resolution or misuse in the conflict escalation stage. So, because after a conflict, many people often look back and ask, why did we lose lives, destroyed public infrastructure, and waste private and public investment just to end up here? Or maybe they ask themselves, why didn't we talk first and reach the same outcome through dialogue? So it's absurd. It's absurd. However, it happens again and again. So conflicts don't only drain money. Money is a resource, but also conflicts drain trust, time, opportunities for real progress. These are resources. So we need to identify how resources has been used or misused during the conflict. Okay, now let's see the type of resources. We have tangible resources, money, infrastructure, vehicles, natural resources, and many others. We have also intangible resources. For example, the company has a reputation that will be managed in the conflict, or the community has also to take care of culture, or the government has political power, the company has economic power, so there are many other intangible resources. Then we have, and maybe the most important resource is the human resources. Employees, director, people, community members, and many others. Okay, see, these are the three types of resources. But let's see the elements, the resources elements. So we have in the first we have two types of signs. So we have positive and negative signs. The negative signs is the for conflict escalation stage, and the positive sign is for the conflict resolution stage. Inside we have values from 0 to 3. 0 for no resources, 1 is for resources from one stakeholders group, 2 is resources from 2 stakeholders group, and 3 for resources from the 3 stakeholders group. Now let's take a look at these groups. So we have the global resources of stakeholders. So in the company group is the only member of the company group is the company itself, and its resources are varied. For example, the personnel or staff, vehicles, machineries, infrastructure, money, but also the company has intangible resources like reputation and image and many others. So on the other hand, you know that in the conflict there are many levels of governments uh, who take parts in the conflict. It could be municipality, could be local government, state government, or national government. So what are the resources used by governments? We could say public force like policemen, military, public authorities also take parts, public funds, public staff, public infrastructure in general. And the community group. So you know, in the conflict there will be many communities, some in favor and some against the company. So for communities who are in favor, they also use resources. Community that are against the company uses its resources, like for instance, people takes time to complain, people themselves, money, lands, and natural resources. These are different type of resources for each group. Now, how to calculate the subtotal social license to operate for these elements? So we need to answer the following two questions. The first is, what stage of the conflict is being evaluated? I mean, you have two options. the conflict escalation stage or the conflict resolution stage. And the other question is how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict. You have also three options here. One stakeholder group, two stakeholders group, or three stakeholders group. Let's see some examples. Regarding the first question, what stage of the conflict is being evaluated? So you have only two options. If the conflict is being evaluated in the conflict escalation stage, its value is negative, as you see here. Or if the conflict is being evaluated in the negotiation or the conflict resolution stage, the value is positive. So this is simple. And let's go to the next question. However, in the next question is how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflicts? It could be many communities, it could be many governments levels and the company. So if the conflict is between the company and one community at least, we can say two groups. If the conflict, the participants of the conflicts are not only the community, but also the government and the company group, we can say three. So, because they contribute with resources to escalate the conflict or the conflict resolution. Okay, so let's see possible answers. So answering these two questions, you have only 6 possible answers. With a negative, because they are in the conflict escalation stage, there could be 3 people or 3 stakeholders groups. So when all 3 stakeholders groups means the company, the community, and the governments misuse resources during the conflict. So everyone here is fighting and everyone is losing. In the negative 2, when 2 groups, usually the company and the community, misuse resources in the conflict. Money, time, and energy are burned on confrontation instead of cooperations. In negative 1, only one stakeholders group misuse resources during the conflict. For example, maybe one side keeps pushing the conflict while others try to calm things down. On the other hand, we have 3 options. Resources are used properly for community development. For example, we have the positive 3. Here, the 3 stakeholders groups, the governments, community group, and the company are working together and use their resources to develop the community. In the positive 2 is a little different. Here, maybe the company and either the government or the community use the resources to support social projects. Cooperation begins to take shape. Is progress visible? The agreement. And positive 1, when the company alone uses its resources to benefit the community. So it means it's a good start, one step toward rebuilding trust. So now, you see that you have only 6 options to answer these elements. Okay, let's put in practice these elements. Case number 1. The company uses community land without permission, leading to protests. So we need to answer the 2 questions. The first question is, what stage of the conflict is being evaluated? So here you have this protest term. So the answer is the conflict escalation. This is important because we need to define the sign here. In this case, we have negative sign. And the other question is, how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict? So we will use this table to identify the number of stakeholder groups. So in this column, we have the community group, the company group, and the government group. According to the case, the resources for the community are land, because the land has been taken by the company, and people for protesting. These are the two resources, community resources. On the other hand, we have the company. What resources has used the company to take the land without permission? So staff and equipment. Um, uh, the government doesn't participate in this case. So the total stakeholder groups is 2. So if we combine this yellow sign with the number, the total answer is -2. Great. So let's see another example. Case number 2. Community protest over environmental contamination and employment, leading to the occupation of company facilities and hostage taking. Imagine. So let's answer the 2 questions. What stage of the conflict is being evaluated? So conflict escalation, of course, is the answer, is negative. And the other is how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict. So you can read here and you can use the table to answer. So the community, people, and the environment are the resources used in this case. The company, the resources are hostage, staff, and infrastructure has been damaged by the company. And the government doesn't participate in the conflict yet. So again, the subtotal of this case is only 2 stakeholders group, and combined with the yellow sign, the total is -2. Let's see another example. In case 3, we had community protests escalate into violence, resulting in injuries, deaths, and damage to public and company infrastructure. So here is more complex. So let's answer the question. The first question is easy to answer. This is conflict escalation again. It's negative. In the second question, we have the community. People is human resources protesting. The company, the infrastructure is damaged. But also the government, because the public infrastructure is damaged. It could be a school, a public school. It could be a hospital, public hospital. It could be a public infrastructure in general. So how many resources have been used or damaged in this conflict? In this case, stakeholders groups are 3. So combined with the yellows, we have the total is -3. Let's see this another example, but in this case, we have following the crisis, both parties sat down to negotiate solution to the water resource issues. And the company proposed building a water reservoir as part of the agreement. So they sit down, discuss, and reach an agreement, and the company commits to invest in water reservoir. So in this case, the answer for the first question is conflict resolution. And how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict or in the conflict resolution? That is the case. So we have the community doesn't use resources for the water reservoir. The company has an investment in water reservoir, and the government is not part in the negotiation table. So the only stakeholder group is the company. The company found the water reservoir for the community. So the subtotal is +1. Let's see another example. In this case, a part of a broader development agreement, the parties committed to join investment in a milk production plant. So the mining company financed the infrastructure, the machinery, and the equipment. The community contribute the land designated for the facility, I mean for the milk production, and the local municipality was responsible for constructing water channels to ensure an adequate and sustainable water supply. So as you see here, the first question, what stage of the conflict is being evaluated, is the conflict resolution. Is it positive because it's community development. And the second question, how many stakeholders groups are involved? So in this case, the community resource is land, the company resource is infrastructure, machinery, and equipment for the milk production plant. And the government, if this is local municipality or local government, is responsible for the construction of water channels. So in this case, we have the three stakeholders group, and the total is positive or +3. Okay, now let's go to. Okay, let's continue filling out our ASEC tool with the case study. Remember that we are working in a case study and we are filling out the ASEC tool about the mining project in Australia that wants to open a gold mine in the Goldfield region. And we have filling this information to the stakeholders activities, right? Now let's let's continue working in the global resources of a stakeholders group. Here we have to determine, or we have to answer two main questions to calculate the resources value. So depending on the stage, we have a positive use of resources or a negative use of resources. So let's start with the first question. What stage of the conflict is being evaluated? According to our information, we are evaluating the conflict escalation stage. It means a negative value. The second question is, how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict? So here we have the groups, the stakeholders. We have the company. The company is the first group. We have the local government. The government is the second group. And finally, we have the community. The community is the third group. What about the NGO? The NGO is a social organization. It's part of the community. So these two stakeholders belong to the same community group. So the question is, how many stakeholders groups are involved? 3 stakeholders group. The company, the local government, and the community. So, and what are the resources used by each one? So regarding the company resources, the company used staff and machinery to take the community land without permission. What about the local government resources? So the local government resources are the mayor himself who asked the company to invest in social projects. The mayor invests time to these requirements. Then the community resources are the land. Of course, the land is the main resource used by the company without permission. People use time to protest, to complain. Finally, people block roads. These are the resources for the community stakeholders. Finally, we have the NGO. NGO resources are staff, time, and budget, but it's neutral. So answering these two questions, we have a negative stage, and we have 3 stakeholders groups. So the value for this element, remember that these are only one group, and the value for this element is -3, right? Okay, now let's work in the conflict resolution stage with a new ASEC tool to complete or to continue working the case study that we have advanced so far. So we have the information. The project name is the Mining Project in Australia. The company's objective in this stage is to improve relationship with the community and the components to solve the conflict where the compensation and social investment. And we have this information until stakeholders activity, right? Now let's go to the global resources element. So you know that we have to answer these two questions. What stage of the conflict is being evaluated? In this case, we are in the conflict resolution stage, and this is positive, has a positive sign. And then how many stakeholders groups are involved in the conflict? As you know, now we have three stakeholders group: the company, the local governments, and the community and NGO. So what resources are used in this stage? Now the company use funds for compensation and social investment. The local government also, the mayor participate in the conflict resolution, and the mayor allocate public funds for this solution. Then we have the community participates actively in social projects. So the community members, people are participating and they are using their time to participate in this activity. And what about the NGO? The NGO use staff, time, and budget to assist the community in this process.